I was trying to think like, what are we gonna do for the intro?
I mean, this
Yeah, yeah. I feel like nothing really leads up to this movie. I guess Logan. Like Deadpool 2 definitely doesn't lead into this
everything, no,
movie.
everything leads up to this movie.
Yeah, every legacy
Everything.
movie ever and Logan lead us directly into what we're going to talk about today. So thank you guys for joining. We are talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool 3, Deadpool X Wolverine. These are all titles that I've seen floating around the internet, and I'm still not 100% sure what the movie's called. I think it's called Deadpool and Wolverine.
Sounds
But
about right.
that's what we're talking about today. If you haven't seen it, stop now. Before we talk about anything, before the intro plays, stop listening. Go watch this movie. You will kick yourself if you listen to this episode before you see the movie, because I guarantee most of what we're going to talk about is probably not the story of this movie. It's all the fun stuff that they put in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
please stop listening if you haven't. If you choose to continue listening, I guess spoiler warning, although you should know that by now. Um, so let's uh, strap on our red suit or our yellow and blue suit and dive into Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm Drew,
I'm Luke.
I'm Elisa.
and we are the Agents of Mace. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Agents of Mace. Today we're, I guess, sort of like finishing our X-Men movie watch through for now, with the newest installation. Finally, a Disney Marvel X-Men mutant movie, um, Deadpool and Wolverine. It was probably the movie I've looked forward to the most for a very long time. And it definitely delivered on everything I wanted from a movie. Uh, there was not a moment of the movie that I was bored or uh, upset. There are some confusing moments when I thought about it later when it comes to like timeline. But we'll get into that when we get into it. So I guess for the rest of us, first thoughts.
Okay. I really liked it. This is an yet another Marvel movie where you see the fans, the people, the viewers all across the board. So I've definitely seen a share of just completely hated it, could care less about it, to the general like I enjoyed it, I'm satisfied, may watch it one more time, versus like completely loved it, like everything that they did, flaws and all, it still is what I wanted. I'm probably teetering in between like the satisfied and loved it.
Hmm.
Probably more so loved it. I've watched it twice. I'm like on the fence because I think the only thing that comes out this week is Traps. I'm like, ooh, don't want to go watch Deadpool and Wolverine for a third time.
Yes.
Um, I mean, it could happen. Um, but yeah, a lot of fun. Really bad flaws in this movie that we can get into. I think and a lot of that could just come from like how much we've talked about it on the show of like where we could see it going, what direction. Um, you kind of get in your head of like, oh man, if they go down this story route, it could be incredible. And it's like yet again, like story wise, it's almost like they're doing a whole different variation of like what we got from like Logan, which is okay, I guess. But man, it's just like y'all just think they held back a little bit too much there. Like they could have really
Mhm.
gone in deeper on a story and made it pretty awesome. But for what this movie is, I think it's a fun watch, and I do see like any viewer could have a lot of fun with it, unless you just are just that nitpicky over everything.
How about you, Elisa?
Yeah, I also thought that it was a lot of fun. There were several moments that were just purely delightful watching this movie. I mean, I'm with Luke. Mason and I talked about this, and we decided it wasn't as good as Deadpool 2. Um, and that one's probably both of our favorites, but I still thought that. this delivered on basically all fan expectations. It was a really, really fun 2 hours and I think 10 minutes in the theater. And it gives us a lot to talk about today, so I'm excited.
Yes, I will agree that I think the story and the plot of this movie definitely seemed like the finale of a trilogy, which, it sort of was. It doesn't feel like, I guess what I thought was going to happen was that since they were bringing Deadpool into the Marvel universe, this would be like a jumping off movie that would like lead to more movies down the line. This definitely feels like a ending movie that's sort of like putting an end to Deadpool and Wolverine. It does feel like we will see Deadpool again in things, but more as like a pop-in character, less of like a we're gonna get Deadpool 4. Um, which like I'm kind of fine with.
I
I
mean,
think,
yeah, but this movie's probably gonna make so much money. They'll
oh
be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
we could do another Deadpool, right?
Yes, I agree, but I think the problem with them continuing Deadpool movies is that it seems like they're making each one as if it could be the last one
Right.
rather than making one that is going to lead into something else, which is fine. It's just like it does make it feel like the movie needs to lean heavier on the like funny bits and cameos to make it like ooh fun nostalgia movie and less of like a this is an interesting plot point. Um, I mean, from the get-go, this movie is like littered with references and Easter eggs and cameos, and not just from Marvel, but from like they make DC jokes. They make jokes about Hugh and Ryan's life. They make jokes about the actors that are in it. They make, like it blew my mind how many like it almost felt like we were in on a bunch of inside jokes that were
Mhm.
made, which was,
Yeah.
I think, a lot of fun. There were a couple that I had to explain to my wife later. Um, like the Gambit, like most of the jokes that he made about basically nobody knowing who he was, or like it felt like he was born in the void. It was like, well, yeah, those I had to explain like those jokes are because like he was supposed to do a movie and then the movie got canceled. And so like that's what
Mhm.
those jokes are referencing. So there were some like, you got to be a fan of the universe to catch them jokes, but they were in
Mhm.
there and they were really well done. Um, I feel like all I want to talk about is like all the fun stuff that got put in. Like,
So let's start with that. Let's go round table. Favorite cameo appearance.
I think I have two. I have like a funny one and I have a serious one.
All
I think
right.
my funny one was comic accurate Wolverine. I thought that was like one of my top moments in the movie. It
Excuse
was
me.
just so funny. I think my like actual favorite cameo was honestly probably Gambit because it was like he played him so well. The accent, I know some people now, like I'm good friends with them that are from Louisiana
Mm.
in that area. And after the movie brought it up, I was like, oh, what'd you think of Gambit's accent? And they were like, it was actually really good. And I know people that sound like that. And I was like, all right, I've doubled down. Now I'm all in on Channing Tatum Gambit. So
There we go. There we go. I wonder how long he worked on that.
I'm sure a long
Like,
time. It doesn't
had to
seem like
work on
an
that a long time.
easy accent to.
Yeah. Um, I gotta go Blade. I mean, as heavily as that was rumored, you just never really know. And like even from the trailers, you knew like that there's like the TV version of Blade there. Just when he walked on screen, I like lost it. I just like thought that was the coolest thing ever. Uh, Even like his little one liner, like when they're going into battle, is like basically saying like there's always ever going to be one blade.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yeah,
what is
which
this gonna, and then even like right after that, like you see Deadpool just kind of look at the screen. So it's like making me wonder, like, what are they trying to tell us? Is this like the Mahershala Ali is just never gonna happen at this point?
right,
Like no one remembers or acknowledges the TV series Blade. Like
right.
I don't know, think any of us have watched that series, right? So
I
It's
didn't
on
know
my
there was one.
list. Yeah, it's on my list,
yeah.
but no.
So I thought that was great. I think in terms of a funny one, I really liked Elektra's line about Daredevil. About
Yeah.
like when they're kind of basically stating like, here's all these other potential cameos you could have seen, but they're already dead. One of which being Daredevil, and Elektra's just like, yeah, it's okay about that.
Yeah. Which
Good
was
for
funny
her.
because it was another one of those jokes that you kind of have to know a little bit about the people outside of the movies to catch. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, funny that they threw it in there for sure. I was a little bummed the people that they listed that used to be part of the team, but they all died. I was like, oh, I wanted to see them
The
too.
Punisher one probably got me because the Punisher gets brought up a lot in terms of like, oh, where'd you get that gun? Oh, it was the Punisher's.
Hmm.
Like I think he gets brought up like 3 times, and it was like,
And the
which
Russian is
Punisher?
there.
Yeah, and the Russians there, yeah.
And well, I guess Bullseye is more of like a Daredevil thing, but
Hmm.
he was in there. How about you, Elisa?
No, no, I gotta go Wolverine. I mean, like, that one was my favorite just because I'm in the Justice for Henry Cavill camp for sure. Um, but I also there were so many that I really enjoyed. Of course, X-23, we know it was happening, but it was still it led to a couple of really nice moments in the movie. I loved Hunter B-15 being in it. That was a little bit more than a cameo role, but I was excited
Yep.
to see somebody from Loki in there. I can't believe they traipsed all over the void and we didn't run into a pack of Lokis.
Hmm.
And of course, everybody loved Chris Evans. And I never watched any of the original Fantastic Four movies to my recollection, but it was still fun for me to see the disappointment in Deadpool when it's not Captain America, it's Johnny Storm.
Hmm.
Yeah, last night, uh, my wife was like, "Hey, this might be crazy, but I think I want to watch like all of the Marvel movies, including the like legacy movies in order that they were released." And I was like, I don't know that you know what you're signing up for. So I had to sit down and count how many movies there were. There's like 68 movies.
Ooh.
And knowing that we don't typically watch like even a movie a week, I was like, this is going to take us like years to get through. And because also while we're watching them, new ones are going to keep coming out.
Right.
So
But I
You,
believe in Nicole. You can do it, Nicole.
yeah, we've
y'all,
switched to now only things that came out post Iron Man. So we started with we're watching them in like the order, your timeline order, I guess. So we're starting with
mhm,
like Captain America First Avenger, but we're only
nice.
watching things that came out from Iron Man and on. So we'll miss out on
Y'all can
like
do it.
the some of the
Just
earlier ones.
one movie a day.
Yeah,
Could do
yeah.
it. Y'all could do it.
We watched the
I
first 30 minutes of Captain America last night before she was like, you want to get in bed? I'm tired.
I thought about doing the same. Like after watching this, I was just like, oh man, like now I just kind of want to, and like all the announcements, which we'll have a whole nother episode about that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, now I'm just kind of like, I kind of want to go back and rewatch them all.
It was so
But
hard watching
yeah.
this movie in the theater and not being able to pause it because there were so
Mhm.
many moments that I wanted to pause to just like look at all the stuff on the screen. It's
Yeah.
like, ugh.
Um, that's what I gained from seeing it twice. The second time, you definitely notice a few more cameos that you didn't, but there are moments where like the screen moves it just moves so fast. I'm like, I really want to go back and pause right here to look like who's all on
Hmm.
that screen because I like could kind of recognize some of the villains and it's like, where did I see them from? Or they're just
Hmm.
like too far in the background to really pick up who they are.
Yeah, well, and that was one. I think you mentioned it earlier. The TV blade. We thought that's who
Mhm.
was standing behind somebody in the movie, and so I did some more digging to find out, like, cameos that I may have missed. That's actually supposed to be a Bullseye variant. He
Ooh.
has like
Oh,
the bull. Yeah,
really?
he has the bullseye scar like on his forehead. It's just hard to see because he's a little blurry because he's in the background. So it's
Oh,
like,
so maybe
oh,
we were wrong.
those are the things that are
Yeah.
like, I would love to pause and look at that more, but you can't because it's a movie theater. A big one for me was, and in a moment we can go through all the like cool variants and stuff that popped up, but when we were watching the movie, the first time that he pulls out the Polaroid of all of them at the birthday party or whatever, it
Hmm.
looks like something flashes across that photo. And I only caught it out of the corner of my eye because, of course, why would I be looking directly at it in this like wide shot? I was looking at all the characters that were in the room. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh my God, I missed whatever that was. And now I probably won't see it until it comes to streaming or for sale or whatever. I mean, I guess, well, I don't know. I want to go see it in theaters again, but we probably won't go see it in theaters again. So it's like, man, I just want to know, like, was there something? Was it just my eyes playing tricks on me? So, Luke, if you do go for a third time, keep an eye out when they pull up
Okay.
the Polaroid for the first time. And I don't know if the light caught it or my immediate thought was like, it's a QR code and I need to scan it, but I missed it.
Mm.
Uh, so, but let's get into some of the variants that we got because I think that was like a super fun moment to not only see the cameos, but also, or like not even cameos, just to see the characters, but also to see all the like comic book references, whether it was like covers or scenes or whatever. Um, so we start with Wolverine. We get to see Logan's adamantium skeleton dug up
Hmm.
and used in probably the best opening to a movie ever. Uh, Solid in sync dance break with dance
Music,
pool.
video, accurate dancing.
Right.
Yeah.
I was only heartbroken to discover that it wasn't Ron Reynolds in the suit. It was a
Nope.
dancer that was doing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I enjoy that they decided to make that commitment.
Mm-hmm. They leaned
Oh,
all the
yeah.
way in. I thought it
Mm.
was really funny how like skeletons don't work the way skeletons work in movies. Um, it was interesting that he was like moving this skeleton around and all of the bones were somehow like staying together. And then he was able to break the bones apart, but it was like, but they're adamantium. So if they were somehow stuck together, wouldn't you not be able to break them apart? Uh, but it was worth it to have him break them apart. I did think it was funny that when he like straps them to his arms to
Hmm.
use the claws, that somehow he was able to make some mechanic that he could like flex his arm and the claws would come out. It made no sense.
Well, yeah, that's one of my big gripes about it's not so much this movie, but like really just any movie. It's like when he's, after this when he's at the TVA and he steals the little like gadget to like control everything. Like he just instantly knows what to type in to get to where he
Yeah.
like it's just like you've never been here. You've never seen these things before. Like how do you know how to use it?
I just brought that up. We were talking about it at work, and I was like, it was the one thing that I didn't understand is that he immediately knew how the temp pad worked.
Yeah,
And sure, he used Cable's time slider thing, but that's
right.
completely different. And speaking of, we'll get back to the Wolverines, but speaking of, the timeline thing was my real issue with this movie, in which Ryan Reynolds has stated that Deadpool takes place in present time. Even though we have already seen the new or the younger X-Men in their cameo in the second movie, which would make you believe that this movie was or this timeline was taking place in like 1992, I think is that timeline. But then also somehow Logan has died. So Logan has happened, and in Logan they state that all the mutants are dead, but clearly not. So how does any of this make sense? And also somehow he goes to a different reality to apply to be an Avenger. But again, Cable's whole thing is that he doesn't slide to different dimensions. He just slides forward and backward through time. It's so confusing. I was like, what are you
Yeah.
trying to make me think is happening here? Like, what? I know it's not the point of the movie. Again, the plot is a little thin. It's more of just like a fun
Hmm.
look at all the cool stuff and laugh at all the jokes movie. But like really thinking about the plot, you're like, what are you trying to tell me as a viewer is actually happening? Because I don't understand. And somehow the
Yeah.
TVA built like this whole antimatter time erasing bomb in a subway and nobody went down there and noticed.
Right.
So
Yeah, a lot of that, like, yeah, what I gained from it is like, okay, so Deadpool and Logan are in the same time. Okay, and then I'm guessing there's a version of the Avengers. I took it as like he just kind of like went to interview. Like he didn't really I didn't view it as he like was, you know, universe hopping.
mhm.
It's just like there's a version of Avengers in his timeline that he went to basically just interview to try to like join their team.
Oh,
And I
didn't it say
think
Earth 616 at the bottom?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think that would have been a better way to do it, but they specifically made a point to pull
Yeah.
up Earth 616, and then when he was back in his own timeline, it pulled up his own Earth
Oh, it was
number.
different
And
Earth.
it was like, well, that
Okay, well,
doesn't
how
make
did he
sense.
do
How did he
that
get there?
then? How did he
Right.
get there?
So
Now
it's
I'm just
like,
confused.
you guys are, I mean, I get that you're trying to like pull this stuff together, but like, especially because that happens, and then we see the thing where he goes to the TVA and they're like, oh yeah, now you get to join the Marvel universe. And it's like, well, he's already been there. You just showed
Hmm.
us that somehow he already got there. He just didn't get to join the Avengers. I don't know. Timeline aside, fun
Also, like,
movie.
why, like, who was deeming Deadpool to be so important, and why was that never really concluded or circled back to?
Hmm. Yeah, they also don't like, so I guess the higher up was Kang, right? And then
That's what we're guessing is,
Loki
yeah.
replaced Kang, and presumably, if this is supposed to be actually present day, wouldn't Loki be the one that's in charge?
Or there was that part whenever Deadpool kind of called them all out on not knowing who's in charge. So
Yeah.
maybe maybe this is just a little scrap of the TVA that has survived and is really kind of self-governing with no oversight, just kind of
Hmm.
B12 also kind of doing her job of popping in every now and then. I
Hmm.
don't know. It is confusing and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's fun. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. Again, the plot of the movie is not why you should go see this movie. Um, well, all right, let's get back to the Wolverines because we really only talked about like two of them. Um, but first up, we get comic accurate Wolverine. So we get Shorty, Short King, little Wolverine.
So
Um,
adorable.
yeah, but with Hugh Jackman's face. I did wish that they gave us some more variants of like different actors, but
Hmm.
it's okay. Um, then we get Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, Weapon X. And he's really cool.
Hmm.
The one thing that they didn't show is that like in the comics that he lose Wolverine loses a hand, and they basically like plate his stump in metal because if his hand were to grow back, it wouldn't have adamantium. Um, but then somehow they like rig the metal stump so that he can still pop his claws through it. And we didn't get that, but that's okay. It was again, it was just like a fun little thing. Uh, then we get Wolverine in his brown and yellow. And the moment that I was so excited about, because I was like, while it's not what I said would happen, I did call that the Hulk would show up, and he sure did show up.
Right.
Only from, I mean, we see his face a little bit. They
Yeah.
recreate like
The
the
comic
original
cover.
comic cover with Wolverine's claws popping out, and you can see Hulk's face reflected in them, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it did look like Mark Ruffalo Hulk,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting because I kind of wish that it had been Edward Norton Hulk,
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
because they were doing this like legacy
Mm.
nod thing.
All right.
Um, and we saw Patch again, we didn't really see Patch do a lot. He was just gambling, which like
Yeah.
that's fine. Uh, and then we saw what is the comic line? Ultimate X-Men, maybe? Um, Wolverine,
Or was it Fever Dream?
the one where he's like crucified on the
Yeah. Fever Dream Wolverine.
yeah. Um, it's interesting because that comic line, he's basically up there because he's being tortured by the Reavers, and the Reavers were the villains in Logan.
Mm-hmm.
Although again, technically in the comics they were cooler because they were like half robot people. Um, but that was like another comic book cover that they snuck in there. And then we got the one that I think I was the most surprised about because I knew that they would give us at least one Wolverine that wasn't Hugh Jackman, but I didn't know who it was going to be. And then we get the Cavalrine, and he does his Mission Impossible like
His
arm
like
cock before
his
he punches him.
reloads his arms,
Yeah.
except for this time it's how he like does the pops the claws.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man. And
The
they make
ultimate F you to DC.
yeah, they make a solid joke in there about like come over to our side, we'll treat you better than they do down the street. Um that was really cool. I'm bummed that it was only like one quick scene. I was like, oh man, I wish we had gotten more of that.
Mm.
Like
I'd watch a
I
whole movie of that, frankly.
I mean, is that what this was? Was this like fan casting?
A soft launch.
It's like
Yeah.
how much did you get paid just for that one little scene?
Right. Or I don't know, Henry Cavill's like a big nerd. Maybe he was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll do it for free. Just throw me in there.
And
Yeah.
that scene was so like it was so tiny and enclosed. I bet there are people who were working on the movie who didn't know he was in it.
Oh, 100%. It was probably only the people that were like on set that day.
Yeah. Like, yeah. That was like what, just an afternoon of filming, and then he
Right.
just goes home.
Kirk's on his egg grill.
But he was not the only celebrity surprise cameo. Obviously a bunch of the Deadpools were celebrities.
Mhm.
When the Deadpool Corps show up, you just can't see them, so you wouldn't know unless you read all the credits names. Um, there was one that like I've seen differing things about, but Rob McElhenney, who owns Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds, was on set and also was in the movie and is credited in the movie. Um, he was one of the TVA agents. I think, and my wife thinks as well, that the one that Deadpool points out, like the first time he meets the TVA agents, when he points to the one and is like, I can't see your eyes, but you're gonna we're gonna have a connection or whatever he says, the one that he points out. I think that one is Rob McElhenney, but there are set photos where they're in like the forest and Rob McElhenney is wearing that suit, and people
Mm.
think that the scene that he was in was cut from the movie and
Uh,
maybe like a
I mean,
deleted scene later.
on his Instagram, like he's in a TVA suit. He's
Mm-hmm.
also holding like the claws,
Mm-hmm.
and taking a picture with Hugh. Um, so yeah, he's got to be like, yeah, I agree. He's
Yeah.
probably like one of those.
He's in there. I just don't know which one because that's the whole point. They wear the mask. You can't tell. Um,
Oh wait, he does say, "I hope you enjoyed because the theater I was watching the film in mistakenly had cut it out."
yeah,
So
so
maybe
so I don't know.
it's curious,
Is
yeah.
it a joke? Is it
Curious.
real?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wanted to derail for just one quick
Of
second
course.
because I'm curious if both of you experienced this as well. When Deadpool gets to the TVA, and when I'm pretty sure this is when he's having an early conversation with Paradox, did you either of you hear a cell phone ring?
I don't remember hearing that.
Hmm.
I so seeing it twice, both of those moments, like the first time I was like, man, that sounded like someone's cell phone was going off, but like they didn't say anything. They didn't like reference it on the screen. And
Hmm.
then watching it again, I hear it again, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. Like that's got to be someone's cell phone going off that they didn't either edit it out or what, because it was the exact same ring. It wasn't like, oh, it was just weird. So this is another reason why I want to go watch it a third time, just to try to pick up that moment of like, did they actually leave someone's cell phone ring going off and not catch it or edit it out?
Man, well, if I get to see it again, I'm definitely going to listen for that because I
It's
don't.
early on. It's like right when
Right.
he Deadpool gets to the TVA and he's meeting Paradox, and they're kind of like, he's like walking him down to show him like the whole Marvel thing. Like during that moment, I'm like 99.9% sure just this random cell phone audio sound goes off like for just a second, right?
That's funny. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of funny things to catch, that maybe not were not intended, Nicole caught in the scene where Wolverine and Deadpool are fighting through the Deadpool core and they're going past the taxi. There's a Deadpool who's on the taxi who very safely climbs down off the taxi, and it stands out because everyone else is like being flung around or jumping around, but this one guy like takes his time to like, you know, do that
Hmm.
thing where you like crouch and put your hands on the hood and reach his leg down to like safely climb down off the taxi instead of jump off the taxi. And Nicole is like, I wonder if that was scripted or if that guy was just like, I'm not going to jump. I could hurt myself. I'm going to step down. And they just left it in.
Cautious pull.
Yeah.
Cautious
Yeah.
pull.
Cautious
Oh
pull.
my gosh. Also, like how many of those were like it was CGI, right? Or if that was just like someone that had extra bandwidth and just like, I think this would be funny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For that whole scene. I mean, let's, before we get into all the villains that we saw, let's jump into the Deadpool core. My biggest gripe with the Deadpool core is that is a real thing in the comics. It is a
Mhm.
real group of Deadpool variants, and they used most of them, and I just don't understand why you wouldn't just put all of them in there. Um, the ones that we didn't get I think they just call him Mexican Deadpool. It's a guy that doesn't have the powers of Deadpool. He just wears the suit and the mask and he kills people with machetes. Um, then there's also a like living cartoon, which I was so hyped to see because I thought it would be funny for them to have this like Roger Rabbit moment
Mm.
where in like a
Oh, that
live
would have been fun.
action movie there's just like a cartoon character, but in the Deadpool core there's like a living cartoon who, he can like blow up his thumb and it makes his hand expand, or he like pulls a hammer out of his pants or something like. um and then there's also like a stitched together one that's like huge. And I was just like, why wouldn't you throw them in there? Like, you're taking the time to do the Deadpool core, and then they like made up other ones like Baby Pool, and there was like the Wrexham Pool, which was actually one of the players from the Wrexham team. So that's like a funny little thing that was thrown in there. But it's like, yeah, you put those guys in there, but you didn't just finish the Deadpool core. I don't know. That was a weird choice, but
Yeah.
uh we do get some cool
Mhm.
ones. We got the 2099 Deadpool, which I didn't think we were gonna get, with her like little laser swords.
Mhm.
Kid Pool, which was his daughter.
His whole
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
was, well, I don't think all of his family were part of the Deadpool corps, but like Blake was, and then one of their kids, and then
Hmm.
their other two children were also credited.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, Screaming Mutant.
I'm looking at IMDb at the different Deadpools, and it does say Blake Lively is Lady Deadpool, which we suspected she would be Lady Deadpool. And
Hmm.
it has their daughter Inez as being Kidpool, which I thought was probably the case in the theater because it's like that kid sounds like a girl, so I bet it's one of his daughters. Their youngest, their fourth baby, plays Baby Pool, which I feel like is probably a voice role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Oh
the
yeah.
shots of Baby Pool that I saw were definitely a CGI baby.
Mhm.
But they could have had him do some cute little babbles and stuff, and they made that the voice of the baby pool.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And then I think
I'm
one was like listed as like Wolverine's Wrangler or something.
That's funny. Well, I know we also got so apart from Blake and the kids, and the Wrexham player, we also got like Wild West Deadpool, which
Hmm.
was Matthew McConaughey.
Mhm.
So fun,
Nice.
fun nod there. The one that I was waiting for the whole time, because I think we've talked about this, and I talked about this with Henry at work a couple times. Where was oh, of course now I'm blanking on his name. The Vanisher.
Oh,
Oh.
Brad Pitt. Jeez, that took way too
Oh.
long.
Yeah.
I
Right.
I was 100% sure that Brad Pitt was going to have a cameo role in this movie in some way.
That would've
And so
been-
when they did the Deadpool core, I was like, oh, 100% Brad Pitt is one of these, right? And then it just wasn't credited, which granted, the movie is still pretty new. In a couple months, it could come out that he's like, yeah, I was the one that was on the bus. And it's like,
Yeah.
I knew it. But I just feel like there's no way that he's not in this movie somewhere. And we just haven't found it yet. So any eagle-eyed fans or anyone that worked on the movie that somehow listens to our podcast, please let me know if Brad Pitt is in the movie. I just want to know. I feel like he is. Uh, we also got some fun ones. We got like Samurai Pool and Zen Pool. Um, I think of the Deadpool fight scene, my favorite moment was Samurai Pool got both of his arms cut off. So then the next time we see him, he has two
Yeah,
baby
like the baby
arms.
arms.
I was like, oh, that's good.
Nathan Fillion is Headpool.
Yep. Nathan Fillion's Headpool. I did wish Headpool was a little cooler. I felt like
Yeah.
he was a little
Yeah.
gaggy for being like a
Mhm.
zombie head.
Right.
But but again, I think all that he really does is he like floats in, he says one line, and then he gets used as a weapon for the rest of that fight. Uh,
Why couldn't they
night,
have gotten Brad Pitt to be Nice Pool?
yeah. Well, so I read a thing because I saw that Nice Pool was credited differently.
Mm.
And I guess his credit, which is like George Reynolds or something,
Mm.
is Ryan Reynolds' like alter ego that he used when he won Man of the Year for
Mhm.
GQ. He like made up an
Gordon
alter ego.
Reynolds.
Yeah, Gordon, there you go. He made up an alter ego to like do questions and stuff. And
Mhm.
so that is who is credited as Nice Pool. So I thought that was at least funny that he was like, I'm going to credit this as a different person, even though it's very clearly just Ryan Reynolds.
Mhm.
Um, which poor Nice Pool, you know?
Such a sweetie.
Yeah, and he keeps losing his dog, and then Deadpool really wanted his gun, so he got him shot, and then he found out that like, oh, he doesn't heal. And
I
it's
kind of
just like,
wish the whole like the thing about wanting his guns. I do kind of wish we had more jokes. I just feel like Deadpool wouldn't have let that go.
right.
Would have kept talking about them.
Oh man.
The Honda Odyssey, like let's ditch the Honda Odyssey jokes for like I want those golden pistols.
So this is a question that I had. Do you think that this movie paid Honda or do you think that Honda paid this movie? Who got paid
Mm.
for the Honda Odyssey to be almost a supporting character in this movie?
Surely, this is a situation kind of like in Josie and the Pussycats, where they use all this brand imagery and don't get paid for it because they're trying to make fun of it.
I Yeah, but they like specifically say Honda Odyssey so many times that like
Yeah.
surely they had to sign
So
somebody
now
had to
the
sign some
now
paperwork.
see, there's too much attention on like, okay, we know that like NSYNC Bye 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 numbers have skyrocketed.
Hmm.
What about Honda Odyssey sales?
I mean, it's a reliable car. They
I drive
drive
a
it through
Honda.
they drive it through a cornfield and across like a desolate landscape. They have like a full day-long fight in it, and then it still
That
works
whole
the next
fight scene
day.
was awesome.
Yeah, I love my
That whole the dialogue moment from Q, like just and then just leading into the fight. I loved it. I thought it was great.
the the idea that they like reused the smashing Deadpool or smashing someone into the radio to like change the songs. And the first song we hear is The Greatest Show from The Greatest Showman. I was like, I was so bummed when they hit it and it changed the song because I was like,
Me
oh
too.
man, I wish that that had been the song for this fight scene. Oh,
Note to self, I need to go watch The Greatest Showman.
oh,
Oh,
it's so
yes.
good. It's so
I need to
good.
rewatch it. It's
I've
been a
heard it's
minute.
good. Heard it's good.
They do make like a lot of jokes about Hugh and his musical theater
Mhm.
uh forays and background. I I did hope that like when we were going through, it was really cool as a comic book fan for them to give us so many comic book variants of Wolverine, but I was hoping that we were going to get like a musical theater
Oh,
Wolverine that
so
like
like how
sung.
the second Joker is supposed to be a musical?
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't they have cut a version of this to be a musical?
Yeah. Just like I just wanted Hugh to sing a line at some point. Well, let's get into some of the villains and some of the like legacy characters that pop up. Um, we pretty much get the villain from like almost all of the legacy movies, which was really cool. Uh, the one that was like, or I guess there were two that were recast. Um, one of them was the Juggernaut, which like I guess makes sense. I know that the actor that played the Juggernaut in like the old X-Men movies is pretty old now.
Hmm.
So like I guess I get that, but at the same time I was like, "Oh, but you could have just done it anyway." You know, if you're leaning into it. And then the Russian, that was a different guy too, which okay, again, like fine, but like I wish they'd at least dyed his hair blonde. Uh
Mm-hmm.
just to give us more, because when that guy came on screen, my first thought was like, oh, that's supposed to be the Russian. But then since he didn't have blonde hair, I kept second guessing myself and being like, oh, is this just like a general goon, or is this a bad guy from something else that I don't know? But then at the end of the movie, when I did like a little research, I was like, oh no, that was supposed to be the Russian from the Punisher movie. So that's fine. Um, but we got Lady Deathstrike, who did nothing.
Mhm.
There were a bunch
Right.
of these characters that were like in the background and then did nothing.
Yeah.
Um, Toad at least gets like called out by name at one point. Um, so that was fun. And then we saw Sabretooth, who like died immediately. Which like was really funny, but also it's like, well, so does his healing factor not work here? Or like how does that work?
Hmm.
Like could he come back? Um, we got, Pyro, who actually had like a role in the movie, which was kind of
Hmm.
cool. It was funny to see him be like the perfect counter to Johnny Flame.
Hmm.
Um, then we got some of the like weirder side ones. We got like I don't even remember what her power. I think like super speed or something. Um, she was like the right hand. lady in the third X-Men movie. She had a tattoo on her face. Again, I should have written down her name, but I didn't. Um, and then we also got a Psylocke variant who, again, just like seemingly did
Uh,
nothing.
Callisto, is who you're thinking of,
Yeah,
the super
Callisto.
fast.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Callisto.
I think the villains were, it was like so cool to see them all, but I felt bad for them in the end because it seemed like we leaned really heavy on showing off the fact that they got the same actors to play the heroes, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't bother mentioning like, oh yeah, by the way, we also got the same actors to play most of the villains. And it's like, oh, but like you went through the time and effort to like find these people and have them reprise their role, and then they were just like background extras.
Yeah.
Even in the fight, they like did nothing. Like I think Lady Deathstrike gets taken out in like the first 2 seconds of that fight, and it was like, oh, okay. So like I wonder like what's on the cutting room floor, right? Like where,
Mm-hmm.
did these characters have more going on for them? Um, it's also Deadpool, so like if I feel like they would have made a joke about it at some point, but they didn't, so it makes me think even more that like there are scenes where they have speaking lines that just got cut for time or something.
Hmm.
So I'll be very excited if this movie comes out and they're like, "Oh, here's the
The
director's cut."
Yeah.
Like
Here's
an
the Ri-
extended 4 hour cut of the movie. I'd be like, "Yes."
What if there's like a Ryan Reynolds cut and a Hugh Jackman cut?
The Hugh Jackman cut does have musical numbers in
Yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah.
just a completely different movie.
Ends up being like Henry Cavill is actually the Wolverine he picks.
That would be so funny.
It'd be such an
Uh,
expensive joke.
It would
Right.
be, but I could see him doing it,
Mhm.
He's got all that Mint Mobile money.
Work on his PC.
Hmm.
Oh man. Cassandra Nova was a very cool villain, I think. It didn't do a whole lot to explain her reasoning for anything. They were just like, well, she's powerful enough to leave anytime she wants. But there are multiple times where the TVA is like, we hope she doesn't realize it. But then she mentions that she has like a deal with them. So then you're like, well, so is she not leaving because she has a deal, or is she not leaving because she doesn't know she could leave? Then
Yeah, it was a little.
the sling ring that she has, which like a I feel like she has like the grossest moments in the movie when she like,
Mhm.
pulls off Johnny Storm's skin. It was like, oh God.
Hmm.
And then when she mentions like wearing Doctor Strange's skin for like a week, it was like, ew, like that's gross. Why would you do that? Um, but the sling ring that she has looks like it has either full stones or pieces of
Hmm.
stones. Looks like time and reality
Yeah. No.
stones are like glued to the side of it, which like here we are again. Do the stones matter? Are they actually powerful? I feel like Loki really made me feel like the stones are worthless.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so that was interesting that she had that ring with the stones on it, presumably saying that she could use it to travel through like time and space to
There's
different
so much
dimensions.
conversation around like Professor X and who she is and the relationships. So it makes me wonder like was Nova like or was Cassandra like was she always leaving the void to try and go like find a Professor X variant or version
Hmm.
to have that relationship with? Because yeah, it just seems like what's the actual deal that she has? I mean, I get it. Like the whole thing is like the reason that she likes being in the void or staying there is because she has complete freedom of her powers to do whatever she wants.
Hmm.
So it's like if I just leave, then but you'd think she'd be powerful enough to even if the TVA came after her, like she could kill them
Well,
all.
that's the thing I don't understand is like if she is all powerful, I mean, essentially she no one can stop her.
Yeah.
If she wasn't in, so she lives right now in the void in a place where She can seemingly do whatever she wants,
Mm-hmm.
but every day or once a week, we don't really get how time works there. Eliath comes and she has to offer up a sacrifice to Eliath.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's your life, wouldn't it make more sense to leave and go to a regular timeline and control everything in that timeline and never have to worry about paying rent to Eliath?
Yeah.
It just seems like why would you put yourself in that situation if you very clearly have the ability to not be in that situation? And then the second she gets out, she's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to destroy this timeline. And it's like, what?
Unless like Kang is just if let's put this if this was like Kang in control of everything,
Mm-hmm.
if Kang was stronger than Cassandra and like she's just fearful of Kang, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder, but it definitely seems like Marvel is doing their best to like put Kang out of everyone's mind. To be like,
Yeah.
oh, forget that we did all that. We're gonna switch now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'll be interested to see like what even comes of the Kang Dynasty storyline. Like, is that movie ever even gonna get made now, or are they gonna scrap it and turn it into a Doctor Doom thing and focus more on Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about all the news that has come out about stuff in the future, but that'll be a different episode. I am so excited that uh we got to see Hugh Jackman reprise Wolverine, and not only reprise Wolverine but give us a more like angry, grumpy comic book Wolverine, which like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like through the progression of the X-Men and the Wolverine movies, he's like slowly getting closer and closer to that. And then by the time we got Logan, it was like finally like this is grizzled. He's not super happy about his life, but he has to keep living it because his body won't let him die, Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we got that again. The only thing I didn't like was at the very beginning of the fight that he and Deadpool have right when they get to the void. Why does he crawl on the ground? It seemed
Oh, in their fight?
yes, it seemed so weird when he runs at him and he's running at him on all fours. I was like, boo.
Was that never a Wolverine move?
No, he doesn't do that.
Okay. See, in my mind, I was just like thinking like, oh, that must be a move that he's done, and that's like fan service. Like people are gonna go.
No.
I thought it was cool, but
I it
yeah.
I was so confused. If he was short, I might give it to him and be like, maybe it makes him faster. But he's tall. It just seemed like, if anything, he was running slower than he would if he had just run normally.
Hmm.
And I was like, what is happening? Don't do. And it was all CG'd. It was like, ugh, all right. But then the fight was really cool. So it saved it. But it was just like, man, what is that? There were a ton of like cool hidden things in the void, which like, I mean, we could have expected that. It was the same in Loki, right? There's a ton of stuff hidden in the background. Um, we see everything from like bits and pieces of cities that things happened in
Mm-hmm.
to there's a helicarrier. At one point, they drive past like a wrecked Milano from Guardians of the Galaxy. There's the one guy's driving around a Fantastic Four car.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there were just like so many cool things that, again, this is like I'm so excited for this movie to be able to buy and like or stream or whatever so that I can pause all of these scenes and just like look at everything and be like, oh wow, look at that. Um, because I'm sure that there were things I missed. There was like a wrecked like pirate ship, and after some, digging online, people are saying that they think it's the ship that we saw in Loki, when he's in the void. My first thought when I saw it was like, is this a nod to Mar or to Disney? Is that supposed to be like the Black Pearl? Haha. This is
Mm.
a Disney thing. But there were a lot of moments where I felt like they could have inserted some sort of Disney joke and they didn't. And it made me remember that, like, while this is technically a Disney movie, also it's not. It's sort of like a weird in between movie because they used so many things that were owned by other production studios. Which, like, I know that Disney's like in the process of buying the rights to all that stuff, but like I don't know where they are with it. So who knows like what the outcome of all that will actually be. Um, but if anything, I hope that we get more. There were just like characters that I wish we could have heard about or seen stuff. Like, where was Ghost Rider? Why wasn't he brought
Mhm.
up at all? Um, Even the Fantastic Four, we only saw Johnny, and at one
Yeah.
point he mentions Reed.
Yeah.
But then, and you know, again, if you've made it this far without watching this movie, what are you doing? But the end of the movie, the like credit sequence that plays, which, like, boy oh boy, a super fun movie. I was on like a high watching the entire movie. It was so awesome. And then the end credits start and it's like Time of Your Life starts playing and it's this like, behind the scenes montage of all these movies, and immediately Nicole and I like looked at each other and we're like bawling. um in that thing that was like looping, they showed a bunch of stuff from characters that like weren't in this movie.
Yeah.
And so it makes me even more think, like, were these characters in this movie and they just got cut? Or like, did someone edit this for something else and then it just got used for this?
This could be a director's cut. I mean, I could see a lot more being in this, and then they just maybe they were trying to go after a certain runtime,
Mm-hmm.
and then or maybe they decided, hey, we can just make a director's cut, and that's what's going to be like the physical release will be
Mm-hmm.
like, 30 extra minutes of scenes
Oh my
that we
God, that
cut
was
out.
so
That would
good.
be,
I figured this was just a sweet homage to all of those legacy movies, whether the characters
Yeah.
were in the movie or not. And like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was unexpectedly emotional
Yes,
hmm
yes.
after that
Especially for
movie.
how, like, the movie didn't even end on like a sad or like, oh, moment. So the fact that like that pops up immediately after, I was just like, oh no, what are you doing to me? Pulling me all over the place. Um, Now, do you guys think that we will see any of these characters moving forward? Because according to this movie, Deadpool has now taken a Wolverine from another universe and used him to replace the Wolverine, the Logan that died in his universe, and then rejected going to the Marvel universe and instead is staying in his universe. So technically, all of this is happening in a completely different universe that has nothing to do with the MCU. So
yes,
do you think we're gonna get him in MCU stuff, or do you think we're gonna get him as like a side appearance thing, or just like a side movie line that
until
like
they're 90, until they're 90, they cannot get away from this. That's tough with both. I think, yeah, it's tough looking at Ryan and Hugh. Like, I guess the question could be is like, from this point forward, if one of them has to like be in an appearance, do they both go together? It's almost like, are they together now?
right,
Like, are they just so like, because of their friendship, is that going to be the new joke, or like quote unquote like joke or whatever? But like, if one of them is going to show up in a future MCU movie, they're both going to show up.
right.
Like, that could potentially happen. Um, or they just never this is it. I have a feeling we're gonna see both of these characters at least one more time, potentially more than that, but I'm just banking at least one more time we're gonna see them. Fingers crossed that it's in a Spider-Man movie.
Mm.
They've both shared like if they can be in a Spider-Man movie, they're all for it. So I feel like
Hmm.
that's gonna happen.
And that would make the
Um,
most sense since that is
yeah,
still technically not in the MCU. So
right,
like you
right.
could easily throw them in there and be like, yeah, this is all the
Yeah.
same world.
I'm expecting Secret Wars
Hmm.
is where I feel like we'll see them, and maybe they've teamed up and created a brand new X-Force, and that's what we get to see. But
I will
if
say that
anything, it'll be Ryan, Hugh, and Peter.
I was really hoping that this movie was going to end in a way that teased that Laura was going to either be a part of the Thunderbolts or that she was going to be a
Mm,
part of like the Young Avengers. Because I feel like like Logan built up Laura as if like from now on, you're not going to get Wolverine movies with Hugh
mhm.
Jackman. You're going to get Wolverine movies with Daphne Keene. And that's going to be the new Wolverine. And then she
Yeah,
disappeared. And
there was
then,
no there was nothing about saving everyone from the void, right?
yeah, well, but
Like,
for some reason she was there.
yeah,
Like when they're all eating and celebrating back at Deadpool's apartment, Daphne is there. Well, Laura is there, and it's like, well, you got her out, but like, what about Blade and
I guess
Elektra? Did you just leave them there?
yeah, okay, yeah, I forgot all about that. So they need to give us the director's cut because clearly there's got to be moments where like they, oh, yeah, we need answers.
And
We need.
also, so Logan died, and his universe
Mhm,
is crumbling, but somehow Laura is in the void. And again, we don't know, the time is difficult in this movie, but like how much time has passed between Logan dying and Deadpool digging him up? Because I doubt that I mean, how long has it been since Logan came out? 6 years? 7 years?
yeah.
Not that long? I don't know. But Daphne is older than she was in Logan. So it looks like we're getting like teenage Laura now. So
Mhm.
again, the time just like doesn't make
Seven
sense in
years.
7 years. Yeah. So she's 7 years older. So are we supposed to assume, but also somehow she's in the void already? And it sounds like she's been in the void for a while. So is she pruned early on
Hmm.
for some reason?
Must, yeah.
It's just like this is where the plot starts to fall apart a little bit. It's like, but it's cool and I enjoyed watching it, but when I think about it, none of this is adding up. The math here doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. Um,
Um, I mean, a lot, yeah. Even with like Logan's whole story of what happened, didn't feels like it didn't add up completely to me because it teeters on like the old man Logan storyline because like everyone's dead, but it was like he says the humans killed everyone,
mhm.
which I don't know that I just wasn't buying that, but
Yeah, I was kind of bummed that that's the direction that they went because it did feel like the perfect time for them to be like, this is old man Logan.
mhm,
Um, or at least that timeline where like he gets
right.
tricked into killing everybody.
We did get to see the one other. I don't think we mentioned this variant of like what looked to be an old man Logan, like it was an old
Mhm.
man sitting in a chair
Yeah, that's
as
right. I
like the
forgot about that.
shotgun.
Yeah, yeah, but we only got him for like one quick.
Yeah.
There he is. He shoots him.
Mhm.
That scene's over. uh, I'm so excited to watch this movie again. I know we have talked ad nauseum about the uh
We
the
haven't
lack
talked
of a
about
real plot.
the Wolverine, the complete Wolverine suit.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I will be honest. and I know that it's the reason that they didn't do it for a very long time. Suit on point, looks great. Mask, they could have done without it. Like it
Yeah.
was it was cool to see it finally happen. And then the second that he pulled it on, it didn't make sense. It's been attached to his suit the whole time and no one has
Mhm.
noticed it. But then
Right.
when he puts it on, immediately somehow it becomes a solid piece. Um, but the second he pulled it on, I was like, oh, we're getting it, like his mask. And then he put it on, and I was like, oh, I hope that he takes it off soon.
Yeah.
I
There's a
the, the
couple of moments where it actually looked really cool, but then there was a lot of moments, either from the camera angle or the CGI. I was just like, oof, that's rough.
I think the idea of there being like Deadpool's eyes, right, are like this the
Hmm.
white cover,
Hmm.
but his suit is done in a way where like they can be expressive and they can move.
Yeah. Right.
I think that's the only way to do that. Whereas Wolverine's seems to be pretty static. They were like
Yeah.
one shape and they never
Yeah.
moved. And it was like, I think that's what's throwing me off. I almost wish that like they had been holes and you could have just seen his eyes. I think it
Mm.
would have maybe been a little better. Or if they had animated them to like squint and open wider, then
Yeah.
I think it would have added, but it just seems so static that it was just like, what's he looking at? Like
Hmm.
unless he turns his head to point it at something, it kind of just always looks like he's staring straight forward.
Yeah.
But very cool. I am glad that he didn't have the sleeves the whole time. I felt like the sleeves did feel a little much uh for like the whole suit.
Mm.
We did actually have someone in the theater when I went to see this movie dressed in that outfit. Like all the way in that
Wow.
outfit. Um And I was like, that's dedication. He had to like pull off the shoulder guards and also pull off the helmet and also take off the gloves and stuff before he sat down, which I was just like, hey, you have like really leaned into this stuff to take all that off before the movie.
Man.
Well, did we miss anything you guys wanted to talk about? I feel like, we could talk about this movie for hours. Um, but I also, being a Marvel fan, don't want to like I don't want to give away everything. I want you as a
I feel like
listener to get to
yeah,
go
I
see the
think we've
movie.
we've yeah, without get there's probably two more things we could really get into, but I feel like those would be giving a little too much away.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, from my stance, but yeah, I think we covered a lot.
I we can do our ratings in a moment, but I definitely feel like this movie has like paid off the most for the hype in a very long time. And I know that that's even like a running gag in the movie, right? He's Marvel Jesus, he's here to save everything. I feel like that confidence was not false advertising. Like I do feel like this movie really is like it's fun for nostalgia. It's fun to see all these comic book references. It's like an all-around just fun movie. Um, as long as you aren't going to this movie thinking like this is going to be a story that is going to blossom into a larger franchise. Like, no, it's not going to do that. But it is a solid movie, especially as an add-on to the Deadpool universe. And knowing that like really the only thing that was deemed too inappropriate for them to do, because the movie does seem like they are pushing the boundaries as hard as they can on what's allowed by Disney. Um, the only thing they weren't allowed to show was someone doing drugs,
Yeah.
which they make reference to constantly. They're allowed to say all the names of the drugs. They're now allowed to say like any, funny names that people have for drugs. They're just not allowed to show anyone doing them, but they're totally fine with someone shoving a bone into someone's pelvic area, or that weird moment where he gets the claws stuck in one guy's butt and another guy's crotch, and you're just like, wow, this is a
Or
Disney movie.
even the thing that Peter has on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. All of that is totally fine, but can't do drugs.
Well, even with all that, I don't know. Don't want to get super into it. I saw a lot of kids at the showing, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
that was a little too much. Like,
Same
yeah,
thing at our theater. Like we walked in behind a family with 3 kids who were all under the age, it looked like, of 12. And I was like,
yeah,
what is going through these parents' heads? Are they just this determined to be the cool mom and dad? Because like
They
this
have to
should
be.
not fly.
I feel
yeah,
like a huge part of the like Deadpool, I mean, for all the movies, advertising has been like, don't take your kids to this movie. Hey, this movie's rated R. Don't forget. I feel like they even like reference it at the beginning of the last 2 movies. Like in
yeah.
the first one, it's like, oh, you brought your girlfriend here and she thinks this is a superhero movie. Well, it's not. And then the next one is like, yeah, you brought your kids to this movie, but you shouldn't have. And it's just like, yeah, how do people still think that, oh, this time it's going to be family friendly? Like,
No,
no, not in the
no, it's
least.
not. It's not.
Well, let's get into ratings. Um, I'm going to stick with my usual outside the box thinking for my rating, and I'm gonna go 4.5 Wolverine variants out of 5. Um, and only that last one just is gonna be comic accurate Wolverine, only because the plot just doesn't make a whole lot of
Yeah.
sense, and I feel like it could have. Um, so that's where I'm sitting this one.
Hang on, I was trying to look up one particular thing for my rating. Oh, I don't know if I can find it quick enough. Anyway, I was gonna go 4.5 out of 5 pairs of golden pistols. I just couldn't remember what kind of guns those were.
Oh, they were 50 cal deagles.
Yeah. Were they Desert Eagles?
Yeah.
I think pretty yeah. Um I'm basically the same way. I think if you look at my letterbox, I'm like 4.5 out of 5 there. And yeah, it just comes down to the story. The story was just such a mess,
Mhm.
but everything else is so much fun.
Mhm. Yeah. On my letterbox, I gave it 4.5. It's really probably, I don't know, this is the nitpickiest thing you've ever heard. It's probably more of like a 4.25. But it was a lot of fun. There wasn't a moment watching it that I wasn't enjoying myself, that I wasn't entertained. The only thing that I'm like dinging it for is, again, I don't think it's as good as Deadpool 2. And I gave Deadpool 2 a 4.5 as well. So yeah, that's it. Had a great time. Would watch again. 4.5 stars slash avocados, to use my old rating system.
Yeah. So then, yeah, that you're a 4.25. I think that flies. If you think, it's not as good as Deadpool 2, but you give Deadpool 2 a 4.5.
Yeah.
I think we'll let it slide.
Mhm.
So yeah, overall consensus, go watch this movie if you haven't. Also, if you haven't, what are you doing? I still don't understand how you got this far. Um, and you know who you are, because I know someone who listens to this podcast but doesn't see the movies, and it's like, what are you doing? Go watch the
Mom?
movie. Get out of here, mom. Um, so our question from last week. Oh, geez. And now I'm at work, so I don't have my home computer. I'm all over the place. Maybe I can find my question from 2 weeks ago. We can do that. I feel like it was a question about Deadpool and Wolverine, which that's what we just talked about. So now that we've seen it, our answers would be not worth it. So instead, my question is going to be, and this will play perfectly into our next episode. With all of the news coming out about the new movies and the new castings and things like that, what character would you like to see in this new Marvel space? And if you want, I would say go ahead and do some fan casting and tell us who you'd want to play that character. There's a lot of stuff going on right now around the Fantastic Four, and some loose news about the future for the Marvel Universe. So, uh, go check it out if you want to prepare for next time, or if you don't want to, just think about who you want to see, what character you want to see, and who you'd want to play them in this new Marvel era that we're getting. All right. Well, with that, unless there's any last things you guys want to shout out about the movie or anything else.
You know, it's like Fox had this long run, so now it seems like it's down to like Sony and Marvel. So like, is Sony gonna keep going, or is Sony gonna have like its moment like this?
I just want Sony to play like, shared custody parents of Spider-Man with Disney again. That's all I want.
Yeah.
They've seen how they're doing with their Spider-Verse. It's not going well.
Yeah,
exactly.
To get any money out of your Spider-Boy, you need to make friends with Disney again.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I thought was coming out next month, but then I looked it up and realized it had been pushed back again.
Was it Craven?
Yeah. The last time I looked,
Craven's
that
like
movie
in
was supposed to come
December.
out in August, and now it comes out in
Now it's
December.
in December, yeah.
And not only does it
hate that movie,
yeah, 100%, because get this, not only does it come out in September or December, but apparently now it is coming out either the same week or the week after the new Lord of the Rings movie is scheduled, I think. Which, granted, there's been like no news about that movie, so there's a good chance that it is not actually coming out when it is scheduled to come out right now. But yes, it is like same time as the Craven is now moved to.
Oh, the war on Ronin or whatever.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Lord of the Rings something.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about that. But I mean, Craven's gonna go up against Nosferatu, and then probably the other really big one will be Mufasa, the Lion King.
Oh yeah, I forgot that they were doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel like they're shoving that movie into a corner so that when it doesn't do well, they can be like, well, of course it didn't do well. There are all these other movies coming out around this time. And it's like, no, it was never gonna do well. So we'll watch it.
Now, was the third Sonic movie supposed to come out in December as well? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I just remember like when they asked about Craven, I think I brought this up on a past episode, but they were basically saying like they're like trying to play it off of like, we think it's so good that we expect people will go see it in the theater more than once.
Sure.
Like, are you sure about that?
Yeah, I still haven't watched Madam Web. Sorry, I watched the first 10 minutes of that movie, and I still have not gone back to finish that movie. So I have zero, like literal zero hopes for Kraven the Hunter to be. I mean, hopefully it's better than Madam Web, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Well, thank you all for listening. Join us next week. We'll break down all the news from Hall H and Marvel's announcements moving forward. So we'll see you all next time.
Bye. I was a little tempted to do ba ba ba, but I didn't want us to get sued. It would break my heart if JC Chazé sued me.
be a good story though.